we had two candidates. Yeah, I've lost the plot. We had two candidates, Rafał Trzaskowski, the current mayor of Warsaw, who represents the Civic Coalition, the current ruling government, which is, as the name implies, a coalition between the Civic Platform. Mainly, those are the main three components of the coalition: the Civic Platform, the Third Way, and the New Left, which I'm not sure if you are starting to see problems considering the names itself, but I'm just gonna go a little bit further into this and say that the Civic Platform is a center-left party, more or less. The Third Way is a more right-wing party, and the New Left, I think, is pretty self-explanatory. That is a left-wing party. And so, as you can see, there might probably be some tension points between these parties, considering that they are ideologically not completely aligned, and they have decided to form a coalition in the 2023 parliamentary elections, primarily to get the Law and Justice United Right coalition out of power. That was the main idea behind this coalition, this unlikely allied coalition. There were some main points that the coalition was running on. There were some main issues that it wanted to tackle. The primary problem that the new coalition had to face was the fact that during the 8 years of its rule, the Law and Justice Party has eroded democracy significantly. It has stacked the court. It has twisted the Polish national media and has embroiled itself in many, many scandals. It has also created a very draconian abortion law. I'm going to get into it a little bit because I just mentioned that the Law and Justice Party has stacked the courts, and it has stacked the so-called Constitutional Tribunal, okay? And this tribunal basically decides whether or not things that are discussed, if certain rules or regulations are constitutional or not. And to really simplify things and give you a very short version of events, the Constitutional Tribunal has deemed that the law that allows women to get an abortion when a fetus is damaged is unconstitutional, and therefore the Law and Justice Party has enacted a de facto ban on women getting an abortion if the fetus is damaged, which caused huge protests among women. Women in Poland, trans women also joined, interestingly enough, those protests. There was a big LGBT solidarity push with this protest, with this movement, and a slogan, "Women's Hell," was coined, indicating that women in Poland were in fact living in hell, in which they are forced to give birth to children whether or not the fetuses are damaged or not, which, by the way, caused women to be very wary of getting pregnant to begin with, which I'm pretty sure was discussed during debates and discussions during the current year presidential election. Right? Okay. So one of the promises that the new Civic Coalition government, like the Civic Platform, basically promised to implement 100 reforms within 100 days. And one of them was, for example, getting rid of the draconian anti-abortion laws, making abortion far more accessible, bettering the laws on abortion. That was the whole idea. And so that did not happen. And there is a reason why it did not happen. It did not happen because of the, in this case, because of the structure of the coalition itself. There were parties within the coalition that did not share the opinion that these laws should be liberalized to the extent that the central left party and the left party would like. The left party wanted to go all the way with it. The main party within the coalition, the Civic Platform, wanted to go a certain amount, and the third way wanted to sort of put brakes on it, which created friction over it within the coalition itself, and the thing could not be meaningfully pushed forward. That is one big glaring problem within the ruling coalition that has emerged at the beginning of its governance. I guess the second big problem is the president. The president himself, Andrzej Duda, serving his second term as president, and his first term began in 2015 after he defeated coalition platform's then president Komorowski in a pretty astounding presidential election turnaround, which is interesting because something similar happened right now. A candidate from nowhere came to the presidential election representing the Law and Justice Party and defeated a candidate that was more or less projected to win. That is interesting that I have drawn certain parallels between the 2015 election and the current one, and it seems that my predictions have come true and exactly what I said would happen happened. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. The president has the right to veto bills being pushed forward by the parliament, and that is the right that the president of Law and Justice, Andrzej Duda, has been using in order to block any meaningful reforms that would undo the damage to democracy that the Law and Justice Party has inflicted over the 8 years of its rule, which is, of course, another huge obstacle for the ruling coalition, because some of its biggest promises were that because the whole coalition gathered and coalesced around the idea of opposing law and justice, and so they of course promised we will undo many horrible law and justice things, but because the president who has the right to veto bills is Law and Justice, a lot of this process has been stunlocked into impossibility to implement. So that is another problem with the current ruling coalition in Poland. And so the big hope was that come new elections, the Polish people through their vote would get rid of the Polish like the Law and Justice president, that Poland would have a president more aligned with the current coalition, and that would pave the way to a far more streamlined process of getting Poland back on track of being a fully democratic country. So that was the plan. And as we can see, this plan did not quite pan out. Because unfortunately the mentioned problems over the abortion thing, over the undoing law and justice things, they basically affected how people have started seeing the effectiveness of the new government. And that led to a very, very close election between Trzaskowski and Nawrocki. Nawrocki being, once again, a candidate pretty much out of nowhere, the chief of the Polish Institute of National Remembrance, and a former boxer, a thug, allegedly with connections to the criminal underworld, allegedly a former pimp, allegedly scammed an elderly person out of an apartment. But you know what? All these things did not deter the Polish people from voting for him. And last night, during early exit polls, Trzaskowski, the Warsaw mayor, was ahead in the exit poll, and that is where Trzaskowski did, I think, the biggest mistake that you can do when an early exit poll arrives. He declared his victory and thanked everybody and said that the razor thin sort of margin will be forever etched into Polish history. Like this term, like to win by a razor's margin, this will be etched into Polish history. And then late exit polls started coming out, and suddenly the results shifted in Nawrocki's favor, and it stayed that way till the very end. Nawrocki has emerged victorious in the election. This is where we are. This is the situation right now. And I guess now there is a question of the aftermath. There is a question of what that means for the Polish coalition. It's for its coherence. What it means for Poland's relations with the European Union, what it means for the Poland relation with Ukraine, what it means for Poland's relationship with the United States. And I will attempt to answer these questions right now. I tried watching your debate segments, but they're like 3 hours long. Yeah, that's because they are all in Polish, and I had to translate from the Polish language, which just basically doubled or tripled the time of the thing itself. That is the reality of the situation. I apologize for it, but there's not really much that I can realistically do about that. There's not really much that I can do about that. I apologize once again. If only Polish media would think to translate its stuff to English, but alas, that's not the case. No, it's okay. So, the aftermath is this. We are once again at a situation where we have the centrist sort of lib government that is, well, centrist left, let's just put it that way, and a president that is basically towing the law and justice line, which means that he will be anti-European Union, He will butt heads with the European Union. He will be against integration with the European Union. He will be against joint defense operations, joint defense manufacture operations. And he will be against Ukraine's accession into NATO, against Ukraine's accession into the European Union, even, as he has indicated. He will be extremely pro-United States and extremely pro-Donald Trump, which actually, and this is just my speculation, could mean that he will also parrot the United States line when it comes to the topics of Ukraine. And so, of course, the president of Poland, new president-elect, will use his veto power in order to block any bills that will be substantial and he or his party, the Law and Justice, will not like. That is the number one, of course, worry that everybody has about the new president-elect. But there's also a bigger looming danger, a much more obvious danger that many people might not be aware of, especially outside of Poland, and that is that there are instruments by which the president can push towards an early end to the parliament's term and to organize early elections, parliamentary elections, which in practice would mean that the current lib, centrist, left, quote-unquote, government would come to an end, and that we would have parliamentary elections much faster than the date when it's supposed to happen, which is 2027. And it seems like people like me are not the only ones that are worried about this outcome, because the Prime Minister of Poland, Donald Tusk, has asked the parliament for a vote of confidence for his government, which is a sign that he is... There are a couple of reasons for this. There's, of course, this trying to preempt one of the mechanisms through which the president is able to sort of trigger the faster ending of the parliament's term, and also trying to show the world as well as domestically that even though the candidate of Law and Justice has won the presidential seat, it doesn't mean that the faith within the parliament for the government itself has wavered. And it would also show a unity within the coalition itself. It is worth noting that about the presidential veto that the current parliament is missing a necessary majority to overrule or override that veto. So once a president vetoes something, it's basically a done deal. The current Polish parliament cannot do anything about that. Are we so far so good? So now I think we will watch the Polish Prime Minister's little call for the vote of confidence for his government. I think that's fair. It's 3 minutes, so translating this will not take me 1 billion hours. Let's see the comments. Oh, everybody's calling him a liar. So I'm gonna sip a drink and we're gonna translate this little call for the vote of confidence. Of a virtual Poland. things are not good. That's like, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. Things are not going very well in the country of Poland. Things have certainly taken a sharp turn for the worse. Hold on. Let me check something. This is gonna be a little bit of a mess too. Oh, and Fido started, of course, rampaging, so I guess it's a good thing that I've sort of kind of checked things, because I don't want to have huge noise when I do this little discussion about the facts of the aftermath of the Polish presidential election. Hold on 1 moment, okay? So yeah, let's watch it. Apologies for this like little apologies. Let me see. Are you willing, Lucy? No. Unfortunately, we are all losing, and it's all just going to be downhill from here. Alright. I'm gonna switch to live chat from top chat. We're gonna watch this little speech by Donald Tusk about the vote of confidence.
Szanowni Państwo, za nami wybory prezydenckie. Dawno nie było tak wielkich emocji.
Ladies and gentlemen, the presidential election has concluded. It has been a while since emotions have been this high.
Pragnę Wam wszystkim serdecznie podziękować za udział w głosowaniu. Ponad 20 milionów Polaków wybierało nowego prezydenta Rzeczpospolitej.
I would like to thank all of you for taking part in this election. Over 20 million Polish citizens have chosen their new president. The turnout for this presidential election has been a little bit over 71%, which I believe is the new record in the recent Polish history when it comes to election turnout.
Pokazując swoje mocne przywiązanie do demokracji i jej kluczowej zasady, czyli wolnych i powszechnych wyborów.
Polish people have shown their real attachment to the free and fair elections and to the idea of, well, taking part in the election, basically.
Jakbyśmy nie oceniali zwycięskiego kandydata, należy uznać jego wygraną i pogratulować jego wyborcom.
Whatever you could say about the chosen presidential candidate, about the president-elect, we have to respect the result of the election and congratulate him.
niniejszym czynie.
which I'm doing right now.
Dziękuję także przegranemu za determinację i walkę do końca o każdy głos. Chcę wam wszystkim dzisiaj zadeklarować, że nie zatrzymam się ani na chwilę jako premier polskiego rządu w swojej pracy i w naszej wspólnej walce o Polskę, jaką wymarzyliśmy sobie u progu niepodległości.
I would also like to thank the candidate that has lost for your determination for fighting till the end. I would also like to announce that even though we de facto have lost this election, we will not stop. We will be more determined than ever to bring about the Poland that we have dreamed of when we have gotten back our independence.
Wolną, suwerenną, bezpieczną i dostatnią.
Free, sovereign, and prosperous Poland that we all dream of.
Wybory prezydenckie niczego tu nie zmieniły i nie zmienią.
The presidential election has not changed anything here and will not change anything here.
W zgodzie z konstytucją i własnym sumieniem będziemy współpracować z nowym prezydentem wszędzie tam, gdzie to konieczne i możliwe.
According to the Constitution, with accordance to the Constitution and my own conscience, I will cooperate with the new president when it's necessary and when it's possible.
Mam świadomość, że może być trudniej niż wielu z was sądziło, idąc wczoraj głosować.
I am aware that things might be much more difficult than you have imagined things would get when you went to the voting booth.
Ale nie zmienia to w najmniejszym stopniu mojej determinacji i woli działania w obronie tego wszystkiego, w co wspólnie wierzymy.
But it does not stop my determination and my will to defend all that we all believe in.
Plan awaryjny zakładający trudną kohabitację jest przygotowany.
There is a plan in place which will be enacted in the case of a difficult cohabitation of between the president and the government.
Trudno z góry zakładać, jaka będzie postawa nowego prezydenta.
It is very difficult to determine right off the bat what will the new president's attitude be, which is not exactly true. Like, we know what his beliefs are, we know that they are in stark contrast with the government's. We pretty much can predict what the new president's attitude will be, in fact. So
Gdyby wykazał chęć współpracy, będzie to pozytywne zaskoczenie.
if the new president shows a willingness to cooperate, it will be a very positive surprise.
Na które odpowiemy z pełną otwartością.
We will answer that willingness with full openness.
Jeśli nie, nie ma już na co czekać. Ruszymy z robotą bez względu na okoliczności.
If not, there is nothing to wait. We will do our job no matter what the circumstance.
Bo po to zostaliśmy wybrani.
Because that is why we have been elected.
Będziemy przedkładać gotowe już projekty ustaw,
We will put forward finished bills,
ale jeśli trzeba, będziemy rządzić i podejmować decyzje także przy próbującym blokować dobre zmiany prezydencie.
but if needs be, we will also try to govern and push things forward, even with a president that will try to block good changes.
Doświadczenie już mamy.
We already have such experience.
Jest zbyt wiele do zrobienia, poczynając od spraw międzynarodowych,
There's too much to do, starting with international affairs,
budowy potężnej armii i silnej gospodarki,
the building of a powerful army and a strong economy,
repolonizacji przemysłu,
the repolonization of the industry,
bezpieczeństwo socjalne i usługi
social security,
państwa, aż do rozliczeń i walki z przestępczością.
and also we have to fight criminality and put those who have abused the law to task.
Ten plan wymagać będzie jedności i odwagi od całej koalicji 15 października.
This plan will require unity and determination from the whole coalition. And that is, by the way, the crux of it, that there is a fear that under the current pressure, that are under the current new president, cracks in the coalition might start to form. There is a very real fear that the coalition might not withstand, let's just say, the trials that the future might bring. That is a real concern. Apologies, I will continue once the dog stops barking. That is what happens when you have a dog, I suppose. Apologies. This is where he is talking about the unity of the coalition, and this is where he will call for the vote of confidence to demonstrate that unity.
Pierwszym testem będzie wotum zaufania, o które zwrócę się do Sejmu w najbliższym czasie.
The first test will be the vote of confidence, for which I will ask the same very soon.
Chcę, aby wszyscy zobaczyli, także nasi przeciwnicy w
I
kraju
would like everybody to see our opponents abroad and
i za granicą,
as well as in the country itself.
że jesteśmy gotowi na tę sytuację, że rozumiemy powagę chwili, ale że nie zamierzamy cofnąć się ani o krok.
I want everybody, including our enemies, to understand that we understand the seriousness of this moment, that we are resolute not to take a single step back.
Wszystkim, którzy głosowali na Rafała Trzaskowskiego, mówię dziś, jedziemy dalej. Wiem, co czujecie, ale pamiętajmy, umówiliśmy się na wielką rzecz, wymagającą siły, wytrwałości i być może więcej czasu, niż byśmy chcieli.
For all those who voted for Rafał Trzaskowski, I understand how you feel, but we move forward and we will do what we must, and it will perhaps take us a little bit more time than we first assume that it would.
W demokracji walka nigdy się nie kończy.
The fight never ends within a democracy.
Wierzę w was. Wierzę w Polskę.
I believe in you and I believe in Poland. So that's it. That's the as the presidential call for the vote of confidence for the government. And that, to me, is a clear signal that the Prime Minister Donald Tusk is, in fact, just a little bit worried about the possibility of new president trying to lead to a faster parliamentary election. And let's not make a mistake about it. The early parliamentary election could actually go at this point either way. This election has certainly proven that society is right now extremely polarized. And there's also the fact that the right-wing sentiment has gained a lot of prominence recently in Poland. The second place in the first round of the Polish presidential election was won by Nawrocki, who ended up being the president-elect. But let's not underestimate the fact that the third place was won by the right-wing Confederacy candidate Sławomir Mencen, who ended up transferring a lot of his votes to Nawrocki. And let's not underestimate the fact that the fourth place was won by Grzegorz Braun, a very much far-right candidate from the Coalition of the Crown party, a split off from the coalition party of Mencen. And those two together have won a bit over 20% of the vote, and most of that vote has been in fact transferred to Nawrocki, which was also a big contributor to his victory in the election. Right now, the situation is what it is. I feel like I have presented the facts as best as I could. I have presented you with what can happen, with what sort of tools the new president has at his disposal to hamper the activity, to hamper the functioning of the current government, or rather to hamper reforms being pushed, to hamper new bills being proposed, and that there's a no zero chance that we might be looking at a quicker parliamentary election in our future. That is not something that at this time we can absolutely rule out. Because there are certain, even if the prime minister gets his vote of confidence, there are different tools that the president actually can utilize to still try to get an earlier election. We'll have to observe the situation. We will have to see what this new presidency brings. And for now, I guess I leave you with this. I leave you with these thoughts that things are not as good as I had hoped that they would be.